Hello again. So this time you'll have some details of the routing registry, what it is and how you can use it. Do you have an idea of what is a routing registry or have you ever used one? Anyone? Have you ever used the routing registry? Anyone? The AFRINIC one, right? Okay, not many. So basically, the routing registry, what it does is you actually create objects in a database where someone can actually query that database to check if and authenticate any announcements that they receive from a downstream. So for example, if you have a V4 and an ASN and you're trying to announce it to your upstream provider and someone else is trying to hijack your resources, if you're only using BGP without any authentication, any filtration, it will actually, the traffic will be misbehaving. It will just move as per the actual preference of the link. But if you're using the routing registry and you actually have a route object and your upstream has proper filters, it will actually prefer the only announcement which has a route object and the other one will be dropped. So coming to the AFRINIC routing registry, it was launched in 2013. And the main features are, as you see on the screen, is that it's open, so anyone, a member, a resource, a legacy resource holder can use it. It is a free service that we provide to our members and even the legacy resource holders. Something important here is that we do have a lot of members who are using other routing registries, just like RADB, which is a paid service, but AFRINIC is also giving the same service for free. So it's up to you to decide, but we are just informing the community. Also, it is mirrored by some of the major IRRs. So in case your route object doesn't exist, for example, in the RADB, if someone is using that to be the source for their filters, they will still get it because RADB, AFRINIC, and some of the others are mirrored between each other. So the root object will actually appear when they're doing a query and actually see that the root object exists. It is a stable and a secure solution because it has no recorded downtime since we launched it. It has been very stable and Nishal is laughing. It's easy to use because you don't have to actually create any other objects because you already have the objects issued by AFRINIC. So your INET num, the INET 6 num, the ASN, your maintainer and everything already exists. You don't have to go and create it again. And AFRINIC is the single point of contact for you, so you don't have to go to another provider. Like, for example, earlier on before 2013, you actually had to go to RIPE to create your route objects. So the roadmap of this service, it was launched, like I said, in earlier 2013. So since then, there has been some changes. We actually made some tweaks to allow members to use it and make it easier for them to use. And the latest update on this was 27th of September, where we actually have deprecated the need for any authentication with your ASN. So you can actually add a root object with any ASN that you want. So I'll go into details of what it means and how it's different now. Some examples of route objects, if you never saw one, it's similar to what you see on the screen. Some of the lines, we just removed them. And concerning the adoption now, over the 1,600 members mentioned earlier, there is only 32% that actually are using it. And out of them, if you go into the details of the stats, you would see that a lot of them are using the one from RIPE still, and there has been some changes there as well. So I'll share some details on that. Also for the adoption, if you're interested into some stats of how it has been growing, you will see a big jump in this year, 2018, because of some changes called the NWI5, which was implemented at RIPE. So the NWI5, in fact, was implemented in September itself, and there has been, like I said, the changes. So AFRINIC, how we actually encourage people to use the routing registry is through some activities at our meetings. We do some trainings. We have workshops that have been crafted. And also we give support to anyone who is having any issues. So the old business rules now, and you'll see why it was causing some issues for some members. Earlier on, if you had to create a route object, you actually had to authenticate with the ASN. So for example, if you only have an IPv4 from AFRINIC and you're using the ASN of your upstream provider, there was something called the dual authentication that needed to happen before you can actually create the route object. So what happens is that when you submit the creation, your upstream also has to actually submit the same so that it's created. And if you wanted to create an object for out of region ASN, so if you have an ASN from RIPE, from ARIN, or any of the other RIOs, you actually couldn't do it until hostmaster added that object for you. So currently, like I mentioned, in September, we went live with the new business rules, and now we just need the authentication via the INET-num or INET6-num, so the V4 and the V6, so that the root object can be added, and you no longer have the dual authentication, you no longer have to wait for the hostmaster. And there was quite some exchanges on another mailing list, the DB working group. If you're on that, you might have seen it. And again, like I mentioned before, AFRINIC is a community-based organization, so when people ask for changes, we actually go and do it. So in the background, how it works, we have the three ways of how you can actually create an object. It's using the email method, the AutoDBM. You can use the web portal for the WHOIS or the MyAfrinic account to actually create an object, but the root object specifically has not been added. So the WHOIS and the routing registry, they are two systems, but they actually work in like harmony with each other, and it's actually connected, and you will see the details of how, like I mentioned, the mirroring happening as well. So the similarities with RIPE, if you're using the one from RIPE, is that it's still RPSL. The object attributes are similar, and the authentication still happens against maintainers. It's not a new object or anything else that has been added. And it's mirrored, so you don't have to go and create on each of the other routing registries. So coming to the NWI5, like I've been talking about, so RIPE had actually announced that they will no longer support any out-of-region objects on their routing registry. So what it means is that if you are a member at AFRINIC and you have resources, you can no longer go on the routing registry for RIPE and add the resources and the root objects. And some of the changes that happened is that the source, instead of RIPE, has been RIPE no auth. And there was a public maintainer, because the password was public, the RIPE NCC or PSL MNT has been locked, so you can no longer make any changes. And the objects now can no longer be updated in the RIPE IRR, and you can no longer add any new objects if you have an object from, you have the prefixes from AFRINIC or any of the other RIOs, except if you are from RIPE and you have the resources from RIPE directly. So the impact of that change, the NWI5 on our membership and the legacy resource holders in our region, is that they actually could no longer go and create the object, like I mentioned. And also, some of the operators were limiting their query to source RIPE. So we had an example for Egypt. One of the upstream providers was actually filtering anything that doesn't match that source. So the RIPE no auth was no longer working for them. And they actually had some big impact on their announcements and on their traffic, the live traffic for their customers. So if you are a member or you hold any resources as a legacy resource holder at AFRINIC, you can actually come to AFRINIC and create your objects, and you can sleep peacefully at night. Some stats again. In RIPE, when we go and check for resources that are relating to AFRINIC, we still see around 48,000 objects that were created. And these have been created by 1,068 members. So out of them, if you drill down, you will actually see that it's only 150 resource holders who do not have an ASN from AFRINIC. So the remaining out of the 1,000 members roughly do have an ASN and they can actually create the route object directly. So if you know someone who is not using it and they're having issues, we can help them. Some more stats regarding the actual creation and the members with the AFRINIC ASNs and those who don't have an AFRINIC ASN, so meaning they have an out-of-region ASN, you can have some details on the screen. So for 2018, only for this year, there were still a lot of people who have been using the RIPE routing registry, meaning that even after 5 years that we went live with the routing registry at AFRINIC, people were still using the one from RIPE. And there were roughly around 3,000 objects created by 84 members. And those objects, it's only 8 of them who, like 8 resource holders who do not have an ASN and cannot actually create a route object at AFRINIC. Some recommendations regarding the routing registry. If you want to use it or if you need help, you can go through our documentation that was recently updated. If you have people who moved and left the company again, you have to keep your details up to date. And you have to ensure that your maintainer passwords are up to date because a lot of people actually don't know their maintainer password, and this is the main cause of issues of why they cannot use the routing registry right now. Also, if you're having any root objects in any of the other IRRs and you need help to move it to AFRINIC, we can help you with that. We have some tools to help you. If you still have some upstream providers who say that you have to go to RIPE to create the root objects, or they still in another routing registry, direct them to AFRINIC because we did have one provider in Tanzania who the salespersons were just asking the members to go on RIPE and create the root object without even knowing why they have to do it or what was the issue behind. And now if you're an upstream provider within our region or any of the other regions, if you're an upstream provider, just ensure that your source is not only for RIPE, it's actually accepting the RIPE no auth. Or if you don't want to accept it, you can ask your customers to actually go and create the root objects correctly. Ensure that your filters are also using the AFRINIC IRR or it's at least querying it for any filters update or anything like that. And you can also encourage your customers to use the routing registry to make their announcements, and their customers now use it and make the announcements more reliable. How to use it? You can go again on the, like I mentioned, the portal or even the email method. And regarding communication now, we had been RIPE is planning, and this has been ongoing since 2016 in fact. And also we have been asking for comments on changes, so if you are interested in submitting any change for the routing registry, you're more than welcome to do it. And these are some of the planned changes. Some of them have been completed already when we did the last update on the routing registry. So mainly what we are trying to do now is to engage the community and also try to resume bootcamps where we actually contacted members who do not have a root object and explain how you have to do it and what is the way and the method to be used. In terms of enhancements, the short term is to just engage again internally, and we have been brainstorming on some possible solutions or enhancements. But in the long term, we do want to integrate this on our member portal because we do have members asking for that. So they want to have it on my AFRINIC and make it easier to use. So this is also in consultation currently internally. And also we are looking at the best practices and trying to also put the RPKI and the routing registry on maybe the same portal where it's easier to use and you don't have to create multiple objects on multiple screens, for example. So be heard, be engaged, and you have to participate in the various mailing lists so that we can help you. So help us to help you. If you're having any issues and you want to contact us, IR@afrinic.net is the email address for the routing registry. Thank you very much. If you have questions.
Just a question on, again, on the implementation side for a user. Do you have a test database that users can interact with to learn how to query the database, add information to the database, that type of thing, like a test implementation that maybe refreshes every day or something, so that people can get accustomed to using the database?
You mean like a test routing registry or like a test environment when you can actually do your filters and test it? So we do have the test database, the routing registry if you want to play around. But for the actual, like a network where you can use it or have devices, that we don't have it right now. But you can actually do it via some virtual, if you have virtual routers and everything, you can actually test it on that. So if you install like GNS3 or something, you can still do it. It's still possible.
So what's the URL for the test database?
So the test database, if you go to our website, you will see, you just go on whois.afrinic.net, you'll see the live and the test version. So you just select test, and then you can do queries, updates, and anything similar to the live one. If you want to do it via CLI, so CLI will be only read-only. I can give you I don't have it right now in my head, but I can give you the exact URL. And you also have the test version of the email method where you can send an email and it will actually create it on the test database.
Hello, my name is Nishal. I'm an AFRINIC member. I would like you to stop your internal consultations about whether or not it's useful to have a web update available. As an AFRINIC member, and I'm actually speaking on behalf of 4 AFRINIC members, I would like you to make that a short-term priority, please. I think it's something that is impeding the uptake of the use of the IRR, and I would like to see it be a priority. I've been requesting this for 2 years at these meetings, and I will continue to request it up until you do it. And I hope that other people here in this room who are AFRINIC members do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Nishal. So currently we only have for the web portal, we only have the Whois portal that you can use to interact with the routing registry. But like I mentioned, we already internally are working on some projects where we'll have an actual portal or integration with the MyAfrinic where it will be easier, even more easier than now to interact with the GUI and everything. So it is work in progress, but I cannot commit on the timelines right now.
Sleeping. Can I have people stand up? Sorry. Stand up. No, no, no. Stand up, please. Up, up. Stand up, please. Come on. Come on. Stand up. No. You're okay? Awake? Sahil? Okay. Please sit down. So now we need 2 more questions to Keessun.
Hiba. Hiba, I think lunch was good, so everyone is sleeping.
Yeah. You have a question? No, I will have a question and put it in line. I need another sort of question. I need question from other people. Come on. Did you understand what did he say? Right? Do you have any question, any comment, clarification?
Thank you. Thank you, Kissing, for the presentation. Thank you, Kissing, for the presentation. Okay. Saleh Shahabuddin, Kanar. Thank you for the presentation. My question is, the RIPE NCC will never accept the out AS. AS that does belong to RIPE NCC, right? So, what's the ISPs that does not belong to RIPE NCC and register their routing in RIPE NCC? Is there a time, for example, send them an email, you should move to IRR of AFRINIC, and then we delete it or we keep it? This is my question.
Okay, so something that you have to bear in mind, in fact, is when we are talking about the out-of-region resources, it's mainly containing the IP prefixes, so the v4 and the v6. Depending on where you got your IPv4 or IPv6 is what will determine if it's in region or out of region. So just like with AFRINIC, if you try to add a prefix that you receive with ARIN or RIPE on our database, it will still not go through. The actual resource should be like the v4 or v6 should be from our WHOIS, so it's registered in our WHOIS, then you can add it. But if you have resources at RIPE and the ASN is not there, I have to confirm it, but I'm pretty sure that they do accept it if the IPv4 and IPv6 is from their side. They do.
Same as yours.
Yeah. Yes. So in fact, the authoritative IRR is based on is the prefix in region or out of region, but the ASN it can be anywhere. Yeah. Thank you, Stefan.
Okay. Jan George here as a completely random member of RIPE community, not this one. So when in RIPE database, there was no option anymore that so the out of region objects were deleted, and we heard lots of complaints from the AFRINIC members coming up saying, how can you do that, because we cannot create objects in our database because the authentication is not working, and there were large queues at AFRINIC, people trying to put in their objects, people falling off the internet and things like this. So I'm wondering, is this fixed now? Are the queues cleared? Are we in the business as usual moment, or is this still a little bit of a mess?
So we can say that right now, since early September, we went live with the changes at RIPE. We can say we are still in a phase of transition. We still have some people who are unaware of how to use the routing registry, even though we published quite a lot of documentation and detailed guidelines with like very specific what you need to do first and everything. But people are still facing issues because mainly they are disengaged. They don't really take part into discussions and they don't really follow what is going on. And it's only when they are facing the pain of having the traffic being filtered that they will actually wake up and go to any of the IRRs. So first they'll go to RIPE because they know it was created there. But then when RIPE will tell them that you can no longer do it, then they will come to us. But there is a lot of, I can say, education still to be done in terms of how to use the service and what you need to do. And also, just like a clarification, the actual objects were not deleted from RIPE. They just changed the source. So it's still working for those who have it, and the upstream is not filtering based on the source as ripe only. But we can say we are still in a phase of transition. We do have queries coming in, but most of them is reset my maintainer because they don't know what is the maintainer, or some of them don't even know what the maintainer is. So we are giving the support of how to use it and everything. But you can say there is not like a very big amount of requests right now. It's manageable. It's not like overwhelming.
Can you explain how registering objects in the AFRINIC routing registry could help with maybe routes hijacking or at least enhance the security of routing?
So mainly if you're trying to do announcements, like I was saying, for example, you have in Sudan, if you have MTN Sudan, I'll just take an example. And MTN Sudan has one customer with AS1 and another customer with AS2. So AS1 actually has IP prefix from AFRINIC and they're trying to announce it. So it should go through. But AS2 is trying to, maybe they made a mistake or they're actually trying to hijack the resources from another person. So when they're announcing it at MTN Sudan N, if they don't have any filters, based on the pure like BGP traffic, they'll just prefer whichever has a better preference, which is closer. So in case the AS2 is being preferred instead of the rightful owner, the traffic will actually return to the other guy instead of coming to the first owner. And if you're using the routing registry and you're actually using filtration, so there are tools like IRR toolset, you have BGP Q3 where it helps you to actually build your filters and it makes it easier. So if you're using those tools, it's actually helping you to make your announcements more secure. And if MTN Sudan as an upstream, they are actually putting this filtration, they are ensuring that we don't have another issue just like the Pakistan Telecom, if you remember, where they actually started announcing a prefix which was from YouTube, and the whole traffic got redirected to them. So if you're using the routing registry, any of them, not only AFRINIC, you're actually trying to secure and you're ensuring that your announcements are secure and your customers are also protected. Any other questions?
Okay, this is Saleh. Do you have in Africa, member in Africa, legacy resources from RIR other than RIPE? And if so, do they benefit from what you just presented? Do you have a member in AFRINIC who has legacy resources from RIR other than RIPE, LCC?
We do have people who receive the legacy resources. So before the RIR system, we do have members and even legacy resources from ARIN as well. So you have RIPE and ARIN. And from RIPE, we actually have the ERX, the transfers as well, that were the early registration. So, and we do have another case where you have members who actually get resources from AFRINIC, and they do have previously allocated or assigned V4 from as per legacy. This is also on the database. It answers the question, or yeah. Any other question? Thank you.